Senior Coordinator Athletics for Polk County Public Schools, Ms. Courtnay Windemaker.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Yeah, nice to have you join us.
So, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I really wanted her just to do a tell-all about Dan Talbot, but we won't ask her to do that. But
we'll do that off
obviously,
there.
you work with Dan Talbot, and we were talking earlier, and I was remiss in not giving you credit as well, because I think people understand that the two of you trying to facilitate all the sports that are going on in Polk County Public Schools, that's difficult. But before we get to that, tell us a little bit about what in your history, like I know you've been an AD in a few places. Tell us a little bit about that, how it prepared you for your current position.
Are you ever really prepared? Let's be honest. So I grew up in St. Pete, Florida, coached and was an athlete pretty much my whole life. Been coaching since I was 17. And I started out coaching at a high school in Polk County. I was working on my master's degree. Kind of linked up with the AD and started kind of following her and shadowing her through like football, and got intrigued. And then luckily they were opening Tenorock, and she went and took the Tenorock job, and I kind of slid into the Auburndale job after her, basically training for a year, which was nice because a lot of athletic directors kind of get thrown into it, and
Right.
It's either sink or swim. So I had some training ahead of time, but was there 6.5 years. I left and went as fitness and recreation coordinator at a local college here. And then I got hired onto a private school in Orlando. I was there for about 4 years commuting from Winter Haven to downtown Orlando, and got to be about an hour and a half one-way commute. So I actually reached out to Dan and told him I was ready to come back to Polk County. So I was at Tenorock the past 3 years, and then this position opened up. So now I'm the senior coordinator of athletics. Been senior coordinator for about a month and a half, so I'm still learning, mainly over middle schools, which is a different animal than the high schools. But Dan's a great mentor, so he's helping me. And with that high school background, I'm able to kind of alleviate some questions and things he might be getting that aren't not necessarily not worth his time, but they're easy to answer, so he can focus on more urgent things.
Speaking of that, being an athletic director previously, I'm sure at 2 different schools, seeing it at 2 different locations. Just talk about briefly. Obviously, you're short on the job, but how do you think that's obviously gonna help you in this position and transition into this, being in the schools as an athletic director, now being kind of right there over really all of Polk County? How's that kind of set you up for where you're at now?
I think the first thing is I have a relationship with most of the athletic directors. There's a couple new ones that I haven't previously worked with, but for the most part, the majority of ADs are still the same from when I left, when I was at Auburndale and came back. So that relationship really helps. And just not coming in from someone outside of Polk County, I think, helps too, because I know the processes and procedures already. So it's not having to learn all that plus be over athletics. So I think that's been a big help as well too.
That's fantastic. And as you look at what the superintendent said as far as that feeder program, instead of that first experience being when they get to high school and kind of what the rules and regulations and how to navigate that, and especially if you're a superstar athlete and all of a sudden you start getting contacted and all those things that we know, that feeder program is not only important for that aspect, but really tying back to community. So with what the superintendent said about further developing the middle school programs, what have you seen in your short time in this position, and maybe what are some things to look forward to?
I think the biggest thing is we're working to kind of align the middle school with the high school. Like we rolled out the digital ticketing program last year with the high schools. Just had a meeting last night with my middle school coordinators, rolling out the same kind of thing with them this year on a trial basis. A little different, but getting them in that flow. I know Dan worked really hard to get actual supplements for coaches this year, so there'll be more expectation. So hopefully we can grow our programs and have more people interested in wanting to coach now that it's treated more like the high school athletics.
Wonderful. With this being the 50th anniversary of Title IX, just in your perspective, how do you think this has influenced, how it's helped the high school level, not just obviously it's collegiate,
Right.
even professionally has made a tremendous impact, but with Title IX, just tell about the positive impact that it's made at the high school level now that you look at all of the offerings.
Definitely. I know Dan's worked to bring in more female sports. The beach volleyball, we have girls bowling, we have boys and girls bowling. Girls flag football, we've got all coming out this year. There's been a bigger push, I think, and a lot more interest with girls weightlifting and girls wrestling now being recognized as its own separate sport, having their own coach, supplements, and things like that. I think the biggest thing for our female student athletes is awareness. I don't really think a lot of female athletes at this time were aware in the high school age because it hasn't really impacted them as much as maybe some of their predecessors. Pam Lancaster at Auburndale had a 50th anniversary of Title IX kind of breakfast program for her female student athletes, and seeing their reactions to hearing some of the older generation talk, like one of our former school board members sharing that when she was playing in junior high, they had one set of uniforms, 3 teams, 7th, 8th, 9th, all played on the same day, back to back. So they're all playing in the same uniforms. That to go from that to where we are now is huge, and I don't think they really understood it till they heard it and see it. So that's the biggest thing I think I've seen.
Well, I think one of the, give credit to Dan and Polk County Public Schools partnering with Tourism Sports Marketing and the Tigers when, and her name's escaping me right now, but the first female manager with the Tampa team with the Yankees organization, that first game, first female manager ever in Major League Baseball, and that was at Publix Field at Joker Marchant Stadium, partnering with the Tigers and Lakeland Flying Tigers. But Polk County Public Schools, and people may not know this, sent it out to, hey, we'll get you, it got sponsored, we'll give you a free ticket to every female athlete, and then it was so successful they opened it up to anybody within the school system to be a part of that first thing, and this was national coverage.
And we bussed them there too, which was nice.
And I was just getting ready to say,
yeah.
and bussed them there too, and took care of those expenses. So that's an example of how forward-thinking Polk County Public Schools is on this athletic and on the sports front. And again, want to thank you and Dan and the superintendent. But what are some of the things that we might see in the future? What are some of those things? And this is your chance to say it before Dan comes on in our next segment. So if you want to steal everything he has, go ahead right now.
I got nothing. I mean, future of athletics, I think, not just in the female range, we really want to push professional development, like Superintendent High was saying, for our athletic directors, and getting an aspiring athletic director program together so that you're not walking in blind and you're not walking into, you don't know what you're doing, you don't know the technology, you don't know the rules. So we want to set it up kind of like they have for the assistant principals so that we can guide you, so when you walk in, you at least have some background knowledge. So.
Perfect. Well, Courtnay, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time. And
thank you for having me.
Thanks for watching. If you want to see more videos from Sports Central, click the video below and be sure to like, share, and subscribe.